The Yuzon-Vong War saw many disastrous defeats for the New Republic, but none were quite as devastating as the loss of Coruscant. With the loss of the galactic capital and the death of the Chief of State, Borleias, the entire government and military fell into disarray. The Supreme Commander, Cien Sov, lost a lot of his authority over New Republic troops, and even between those who wanted to cooperate, the ability to communicate was interrupted by disruptions of HoloNet. Despite this situation, in the wake of the loss of Coruscant, Wedge Antilles, a former Rogue Squadron pilot and one of the top commanders of the New Republic, was able to secure one of the New Republic's greatest victories of the war, using an unlikely tool and strategy. The planet Borleias had been an important access point to and from the core in military actions for decades. It had been used as the staging point for the rebels taking Coruscant from the Empire, and in the Yuzon-Vong War it was first used by the Vong as their own launching point for the fall of Coruscant. As the retreat from Coruscant was underway, Wedge Antilles and elements of the 3rd Fleet Group returned to the planet and recaptured it from occupation forces. Soon after, the New Republic's Provisional Council arrived in the system, ordering Wedge to hold the planet. This was definitely meant as a suicide mission just to buy them more time, saying they wanted to use it as a base to recapture Coruscant, but really just hoping it would give them more time to not be attacked themselves, and also, potentially, get Wedge, who would have been an opponent to people who were trying to take over what was left of the New Republic, like Poe, out of the way. Wedge knew he did not have enough resources to hold the planet for any amount of time, and it was pretty obvious what the Provisional Council was trying to do. Wedge basically told them he'd resign and abandon the planet if not given certain resources, specifically one particular asset, the captured Executor-class Star Destroyer Lusankia. Poe had even tried to give another one of Wedge's subordinates, Tycho Selchu, who had been a longtime ally and one of Wedge's best friends, command over the Borleias garrison, but he was refused. Finally seeing their position, Poe and the Council did comply, but they did so while crewing the Lusankia with some of the least competent crew in the New Republic, including Commander Eldo Davip. On the other side, the force assaulting the garrison came under the command of one of the oldest and most revered Yuzon-Vong warriors, a former war master, which was basically their supreme commander, Sulkang Law, who was also father of the current supreme commander, War Master Savong Law. Wedge, knowing he was largely outgunned, orchestrated a con called Project Starlancer, where the New Republic was able to make a fake superweapon, essentially an arrangement of pipe fighters, concentrating their small amount of firepower into a beam, and they demonstrated this by firing in the direction of Coruscant. Meanwhile, in the Coruscant system, a hidden warship shot a long-range blast from the direction of Borleias at Savong Law's world ship, but still within the system of Coruscant. To me, this was actually somewhat reminiscent of something Thrawn did, where he would use cloaking devices and the coordination from Jedi Master clone Joruus C'baoth to have a cloaked ship under a planetary shield, while his main fleet was outside the planetary shield. He would then coordinate the timing, so while a ship outside the shield shot the shield, the ship inside the shield would shoot at the planet, making it seem to the New Republic planets as if the Imperials were able to bypass the planetary shields entirely. Similarly, the Yuzon-Vong were convinced that the New Republic was able to use this super weapon to shoot from Borleias to any element of their fleet anywhere. They had already seen how effective superweapons like Centerpoint had been in wiping out huge elements of the Yuzon-Vong fleet, so this would have been a huge concern for them. This idea was further supported by feeding false information to Yuzon-Vong spies, convincing them that this weapon was not just existent, but it was powered by Yuzon-Vong lambent crystals, an idea that was heretical to the Vong's religious abhorrence of mechanical technology, now tainting their pure biotech. Savong Law, baited in by the experimental shot that hit his world ship over Coruscant, commanded his father into an all-out assault on the base at Borleias. Many within the New Republic forces became angry with Antilles, who hadn't shared his plan outside of a select circle for obvious reasons. Whenever his forces got too far out of the biotics facility that they were using as their main base, he would order them back, including starfighters that were supposed to be acting as aerial defense. They typically had to operate within a small 1-kilometer radius area, which would have been very difficult for starfighters to operate in. Jaina Solo, one of the pilots operating there, was trying to chase down other Coral Skippers, the Yuzon-Vong fighter, and was regularly called back before she could finish off her kills. As the Vong continued to advance and surround the facility on the ground, Wedge's plan finally came into operation. Despite focusing on rebel guerrilla tactics for most of the Battle of Borleias, Wedge was putting into action Operation Emperor's Hammer, referring to the origin of his massive triangular advantage, Lusankia. With the Vong forces all concentrated around the facility, the Super Star Destroyer became one of the first captured Star Destroyers to fulfill its orbital bombardment duties. The Lusankia used its many guns to completely annihilate the Vong forces surrounding the facility through orbital strikes. Now, this is kind of an obvious use of this ship. If the Vong were going to be coming down, then it would make sense to try to use their orbital assets for this. But this isn't something that the New Republic typically did, orbital bombardments, because they would usually have too much possibility for collateral damage, and that's why Wedge was so focused on keeping his forces in such a concentrated area. Hiding what the Lusankya was actually capable of and what they were planning showed a lot of operational security, which is something that often goes out the window. And perhaps most importantly of all, it shows a strong understanding of the Yuuzhan Vong themselves. Wedge was able to really understand his enemy. This battle was the main focus of the Enemy Lines duology in the NJO by Aaron Alston, and it really shows one of my favorite things about Alston as an author, the way he handles these kinds of specific operations. They're always a lot of fun to read. So this is actually a set of books that I think, even if you don't want to read the entire New Jedi Order series, works pretty well even on their own if this is the kind of thing you're interested in, if you like the X-Wing novels. The result of this battle was an overwhelming victory for the New Republic, but it didn't quite win the planet for them. A large Vong force, including the world ship, still remained in place to try to remove the New Republic from their entrenched position. Operation Emperor's Hammer wasn't the last trick that Wedge had up his sleeve though. The next video we're going to do is going to be about the transition from Operation Emperor's Hammer to Operation Emperor's Spear, so if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time.